Okay, good afternoon. Once again, my name is Drew Kent. I'm a business service representative here at the Oakland County, Michigan Works office in Troy, and I will be the facilitator for today's personal branding workshop. I am ably joined by Jeanette Conniff, another business service rep here in this office, who will be moderating this. That is primarily because when I am presenting this presentation, I can't see the chat. So she'll keep an eye on the chat if there are any questions. If you have any, please place them in there, or you can wait till the end and ask at that point. I do want to note we have revamped this workshop in the last, I don't know, 4 to 6 weeks or so. And one of the things we want to do is have a recording on file down at the county. This workshop today is being recorded. So please keep that in mind if you decide to chime in with a question or something like that. I also want to point out that any of these workshops are usable once for credit for job search. That is not something that we track here, but you'd want to track it on your end, and you can then submit that as evidence of a job search activity. There will be a survey that we place in the chat. I would ask you to at least consider completing the survey. We do use that for feedback and improvements on our services and workshops. And then also, if you have any need for follow-up services, you can indicate that on the survey as well. So let me take a look at the PowerPoint real quick, and then we will get started. Bear with me just a second. There we go. All right. All right, so we have some guidelines for this workshop. We ask that you be courteous and respectful. This is interactive, so if you have any questions, as I mentioned, feel free to put those in the chat. You can get our attention during the workshop, or you can wait till the end. It's up to you. This PowerPoint is in the chat as well. You can download that if you wish. And we'll be putting some other links out there probably also. So just keep an eye out for those. If there is any kind of follow-up activity that you would like with the Michigan Works office here in Oakland County, we will have the address, phone numbers, contact information at the end of the workshop. I would encourage you call first before going in. We are all open to the public right now, but I just am not aware of any restrictions on programs or offices when it comes to their appointment scheduling and things like that. So best just to call first and schedule something rather than just show up. And then finally, of course, the survey. Please consider completing that. All right, so what exactly is personal branding? This is your opportunity to create your presence when it comes to your online background, and then also with what you are presenting to your network, to potential employers, and to other contacts as such. This is you marketing yourself as a tangible product, and it helps you to create that image and that visual of what exactly it is that you stand for. This matters because when you are in the job search process, roughly 90% of companies are going to conduct at least a part of their background checks online. They are looking to see, do you even have an online presence? Do you know your way around social media, whether it's LinkedIn, Facebook, TikTok, Instagram, whatever. Also, if you have a presence there, how do you use it? So keep that in mind. People are, rightly or wrongly, either disqualified or moved on through the process, dependent upon what it is that they're sharing out there. Companies will use social media to find candidates, just as we discussed this morning on LinkedIn. You can use social media to find job openings. Companies can use social media to find candidates as well. They can do a search, much like we did this morning, or they can simply review to see who's out there and might be a good candidate for them. And then figure roughly about every 15 seconds, someone is going to get hired from their LinkedIn activity, whether it's them applying for a job, whether it's the company finding them, or it could be as much more basic as me telling my friend Jeanette of a position that I heard about that might interest her, or vice versa. We know that there's been a big increase of people changing positions since the start of the pandemic. It's roughly 25%. You've probably heard about it, the Great Resignation, the Great Transfer. Those are all opportunities for people to find something that may better fit them. There are many positions that are out there, as you have probably heard. Now is actually a really good time to be a job seeker because companies are bending over backwards to bring people in and to search for candidates. We know that remote job openings have increased since 2020. They've roughly doubled. That's a perk that many companies are offering. You may not have to come into the office 5 days a week. You may be able to work remotely. Even 1 day a week makes a difference. I remember at the start of the pandemic, I was working at home either 3 or 4 days a week just because, we wanted to keep traffic and presence in the office to a minimum. And that has continued since this all started. If a company can offer that, and if that's something you're interested in, that could be a very good fit for you. We also know that people in your network, of the people in your network, an average of 71 have changed jobs. Now, granted, we're casting a pretty wide net when we talk about your network. This isn't just your family. This isn't just your immediate friend circle. But when you think about people that you're friends with on social media, people that you're acquainted with, whether it be through your children's school or through past employers or things like that, it's a substantial amount of people that are changing positions these days. So some things to think about when creating a brand. Look at the bottom of that page right there. You see 3 established companies that have spent a lot of time, a lot of effort, and a lot of money putting together their brand, what it is that they stand for out there in the larger world. And they went through this process. I'm quoting from an article in Forbes, which is what you see at the bottom there, if you want further information on it. But first of all, have a focus. Know what it is that you're attempting to accomplish. What is it that you hold most dear? That should be your focus right there. Everything else is going to be driven by that. You want to be genuine. It's not just saying what you think people want to hear. It's something that you truly believe in, and that's what you want. It's going to be a lot easier for you to build and continue and live that brand if it's something that you genuinely believe. You want to tell a story. Facts will get you in the door. Stories are what sell. That's true if you're a salesman. It's true if you're looking for a job and you're sitting on that interview. You want to be able to share that story so that people understand exactly what it is that you're looking to do and to review what you stand for and what your presence is. You want to enable other people to tell your story. You want your advocates to be out there. And how are they going to advocate for you? It's because you have determined your focus. You have shown what it is that you stand for and what it is that you live. And that's why it's so important for real people to share stories about products or about places that they've eaten or that they vacationed or that they shop at or something like that. Because now you have all these other people that are doing that business of selling for you. allow them to do that. Give them the tools that they need to be able to do so. Understand that there probably are going to be bumps along the way. There are probably going to be some dead ends and some places where you have to kind of refocus. Be prepared to fail, but don't give up. You may have to make a little bit of a U-turn or a course correction. That's part of the process. Nothing is going to be 100% smooth and effective right out of the gate. You want to create a positive impact. Obviously, you don't want your brand to be focused on something negative. You want it to be focused on something positive. And look to those people or entities that have done this before and are succeeding. Those are your models. If you want to improve at something, if you want to get better, if you want to be effective, then surround yourself with people and examples that have been successful in the past. Much like being genuine, you want to live your brand. It's one thing to kind of lay it out on the front end, but now once you've determined that genuine item that you stand for, you want to make sure you live it, and you want to make sure you portray that. Over the course of time, it's going to build, and eventually you're going to leave that legacy. It's good to be known for something, and we want those things to be positive. You think back to what we learned in grade school and history and things like that. Abe Lincoln, Honest Abe. You still think of that 200 years later. That was a legacy that was built around his particular brand. And then finally, be consistent. It's doable, and it's easy to kind of modify your message once it's out there, but don't change the core. You can come at an issue from a different angle, but you want to remain consistent with what your message is, with what your focus is, your examples, and what it is that you're putting out there. If something were to change very drastically, that can be jarring. And we're going to see some examples later on of some branding fails. And it's because one or more of these particular tips were not followed. So when it comes to process, the first thing you want to do is you want to determine your target. Think about the role it is that you're looking for and figure out the best, most effective way to describe that. Once you've done that, you'll notice that people are starting to help you with it. Figure out what the niche is in the industry. What is it that sets you apart? When I'm working with people on resumes, I tell them, well, we really want to do something that sets you apart, whether it's through language, whether it's through appearance. You want to do something that differentiates you from every other candidate that's out there. And those things can be as simple as adding a little bit of color to a resume, to personalizing the thank you note that you send to the interviewer afterwards, and putting in some little personal message from something that came up on that interview. So if you look at the example at the bottom, so what do you do for a living? I'm in human resources. Okay, that's great, perfect. That's probably exactly what you do, but that says nothing specific about that position compared to anybody else who's in human resources. I was at a human resources conference about 2.5 weeks ago, probably 200 people in that, maybe 300 people in that room, and every single one of them was in human resources. Every single one of them could have given that answer, or they could give the answer on the right. As a sourcing specialist, I thrive on finding innovative ways to attract new recruits. That catches attention. Now you have follow-up questions. Really, what innovative ways are you using? Give me some examples of some recruits that you've met or that you've attracted. What exactly is a sourcing specialist? Now you're starting to kind of drive that conversation in a direction you want it to go. Step two, you want to strategize your in-person message. So develop that networking speech. This is actually something that a colleague and I are working on here in our office later on this week. We go to these networking meetings and they'll tell you, you've got 13 seconds to tell who you are and what it is that you do. Well, how do you do that most effectively? 13 seconds is not a long period of time. So come up with that message, that networking speech, elevator speech, if you will, that describes exactly what it is that you do. Some things will remain the same. Some things will change depending on your audience. So you see in the middle there, what's my constant? That's what's going to remain the same. You introduce yourself, you say what it is that you do, you begin to talk about how you do it, and then the modification comes in. So we're looking for opportunities in the Detroit area with healthcare and finance. Well, excellent. If you're in Grand Rapids, though, next week at the same kind of event, you're going to swap out Detroit area for Grand Rapids. The following week, when you're in Flint, you'll do the same there. The following week, when you're in Saginaw, you'll do the same there. And maybe next month, it's not healthcare and finance that are your focus. Maybe it'll be manufacturing. Maybe it'll be IT. And if that's the case, you modify that second part to go with that audience. You want to, when determining this, you want to be able to think outside that box a little bit. It's not simply saying, I work in HR. No, you got to come up with something that's a little more spicy than that. As part of this process, you want to start thinking about what kind of work that it is you're looking to do. What is it exactly that you're interested in? What kind of work is it that you want to do? Until you determine those things, you're not really going to be able to create this this networking speech or elevator pitch or however you wish to determine that. Think about the skills that you have. Think about what it is that you're bringing to the table. Many of us are working in jobs right now that are not where we want to be, but we're doing them because they're a means to an end. If that is your case, then don't talk about what it is that you have now. Talk about what it is that you want to do later. Think about the skills that you're bringing to the table. Are they skills that are unique to that position that you want? Or are they skills that can be transferred among different positions? Something like a customer service ability. If you have that ability, you can work. That's something that can be applied to just about any field, whether it's manufacturing, whether it's sales, whether it's government work. We've all been in situations where we've been working with someone in a customer service role that just has no aptitude for that. You can tell. If you have that, though, that's something that you can use in any line of work, and it's not going to steer you wrong. So here's an example. For a person who is a stay-at-home parent and looking to kind of build a career there, you see the example of the old speech at the top. Now, nothing there is untrue. They're not, making up a story about what it is that they want to do, but it just doesn't sing. There's just not a whole lot of pizzazz there. So compare that to the new speech at the bottom. So what this person is doing at this point is not only are they really going into some further interesting detail about what it is that they want to do, but they're kind of wrapping in some things that would be the transferable skills. Relying on some experience that they have is going to be a little bit different than maybe somebody else has. Part of this process is selling your experience in a way that's going to be a little bit different than somebody else's. Um, Once again, the whole point of that is to set yourself apart. And this person is doing a pretty good job of heading off a major objection right there, which is, well, I see that you don't have a whole lot of experience. Well, in a nutshell, you're right. When it comes to web design, that's true. But try spending some time at home with a 2-year-old and tell me that um, that doesn't mean frequent course corrections and changes in schedules and planning and priorities. That's what this person is doing with this example right here. They're using that life experience to enhance their professional skills. Or then there's this one. We have a person who is looking to branch into a totally different career altogether. So once again, you see the first speech, and then you see what it adapts to. It all comes down to, how do you take the ability that you have and explain how that ability can assist with a new position or a new line of work. Yes, it may be a little bit outside the norm, but when you talk about how your experiences can help you, when you talk about how it's forced you to maybe look at a problem a different way, and you can explain that to a potential employer or a potential networking resource, that can only be helpful. The third step, start thinking about how you want to strategize your online message. You want to be consistent across your social media. And this could be as simple as using the same picture as a profile picture on your LinkedIn and your Instagram and your Facebook, and maybe some advertising and marketing things, if that's what you're doing. You want to stay consistent in your language and tone and topics, but feel free to vary that content. You probably have a pretty good idea in some cases when you read something of who it was that wrote that. And you know that if someone else wrote it for them, you might be able to see that there's a difference in not the content necessarily, but just the writing style, the words that they use, how they speak to somebody. You want to stay consistent in your in that language and tone. When it comes to a LinkedIn profile, if you have that, or a resume, if you're looking to enhance that a little bit, there's a website called Resume Worded. You can input either of those two things in there, and it'll give you a health check to let you know how optimized that is. So for LinkedIn, you would just copy the LinkedIn address and enter it into the appropriate place on Resume Worded. If you're looking for a resume to be evaluated, you would upload the resume into that website. And it will, as I said, it will tell you how optimized it is. When it comes to online, you want to post minimum once a week, but really target 2 or 3 times if you're trying to build a profile and an online presence. And pay attention to when you're getting the most feedback or most engagement from your audience. Perhaps it's not at an obvious time, 10 in the morning or 3 in the afternoon. Perhaps it is going to be after hours. For instance, if people are trying to target me with a Facebook message, 10 o'clock on a Monday morning is probably not the best time, because my boss is going to have an issue if I'm responding to them. I'm not going to be getting on there until 7 o'clock at night when I'm looking to unwind. So think about that. Yes, you may be looking to get people in front of their computers, but they may be doing other things in front of those computers. You want to be a source of information. Original content is probably the best that you can post because it shows, kind of what your thought process is and what it is that's of value to you. However, you can also share share someone else's post or comment on someone else's post. That's another way to build that presence. The key, though, is it's that routine posting because that is what is going to reinforce your message and keep you in front of people. I cannot state this enough. We have this as step 4, but to me, this is step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4, and then continuing on. It's networking. That to me is the key for finding a position, for advancing in the field, for just knowing what's out there. And you want to adhere to that 80% rule. Spend 80% of your time focusing on whoever you're talking to and 20% of your time on your own self-promotion. When I was in sales, I was told that effective salespeople are the ones that listen. It's not the ones that are constantly talking, that are, constantly pushing a product. That's not effective sales. Effective sales is when the customer is telling you what it is that they're having a problem with. You listen intently, take notes, and you adapt what it is that you're going to sell them to what it is that they're telling you. It's quicker, it's easier, and it seems counterproductive for those of us that have ever walked into a place that's high pressure. What I used to tell my clients was, would you rather this be a Best Buy type of environment, or would you rather this be an ABC warehouse type of environment? Because I know what it is that I prefer. It is not being inundated when I walked into ABC warehouse. The whole point of this is to build relationships, and you're doing that in order to expose that hidden job market. We know that the majority of positions are filled before they ever hit the market. I've been at this office since August, and I think we've had probably 2 or 3 people leave in my time here. And before those jobs are even posted, once I find out someone is leaving, my mind is immediately working. Who do I know that can fill this job? Who do I know that'd be a good candidate? And if we can get them in the door beforehand, it serves them because it saves them the time and challenge of getting through the hiring process. It saves the company because they don't have to then spend the money to do the posting, the staff time to do the posting, and it is just a much, much easier process. You do this by engaging with others. We think of networking sometime as this formal process where you go to a weekly meeting and you sit in a room and everyone has a chance to talk and you share, it's very formal and you all talk one at a time. You got to dress up. That can be part of it, but it doesn't have to be. This is as simple as talking to the person in front of you while you're waiting in line at Meijer. This is just talking to your coworkers and figuring out what's going on with their lives. Talking to your family members, talking to your children's friends. It's just building that network and learning about people and seeing what it is that you can do to help them out. When you're starting this process, you want to make sure that you are offering somebody something else before you're asking for them to give you something. To go back to sales once again, what I was doing is I was selling health and life insurance. And so what was the advice that was given to me was talk to initially the person that sells you your auto insurance and your homeowners, because they can sell life, they can sell health. None of them want anything to do with selling health. So step 1 is you walk into your insurance agent's office and you say, hey, my name is Drew. I'm one of your insureds. I'm working in health and life insurance now. Here is a client who needs a rate check with their homeowner's insurance, and you leave it at that. And then you do it again, maybe the next month, and then only at that point do you say something like, I am working in life and health. I understand that you all sell life insurance as well, but if you don't have anyone that you refer your health business to, I'd be happy to be that person. You've already laid the groundwork by giving them leads and referrals. You've already laid the groundwork by driving business their way. Only after that point do you then ask for something. But if I were to walk in there on day one of my life and health insurance career and introduce myself in that way, not give them anything, they're going to blow me off. And that's actually kind of what we do when people ask us for something before they give us something first. So think of that when you're looking to build your network. What is it that you can offer somebody else? Whether it's business, whether it's exposure, whether it's a lead, whatever. So now, once we've done all of these things, we start wanting to look at appearance. You'll see on the left-hand side there, this particular company's color scheme is red and black with a white base. So everything that you see on there, and I'll make this a little bit bigger. Hold on just a second. So everything that you see on there is going to be that same logo, this same, was that an R in red in a box, in some cases on a black background, in some cases on a red background. If it's on stationery, it's going to be on white. That's their color scheme. You don't see them using blue, green, purple, yellow. That's not what they're about. And if you look at every single one of their things there, whether it's business cards, is that pens or pencils, stationery, Post-its, it's all that same color scheme, all that same logo. We see the same thing on the right-hand side, although in this case, it's going to be white and say burnt orange, like Texas Longhorns orange right there. And it's that scheme, it's that logo on everything. Sometimes you'll see companies, they go to the trouble of creating their own fonts or using only the same font for their internal documentation. I'm not saying you have to go to those lengths, but once you find a color, once you find a logo, if you decide to do that, then I would stick with it. As part of this, if you're using color, and I would encourage you to consider using color on resumes, cover letters, reference pages, thank you notes, that sort of thing. Find a color that works for you. And you'll see on this page right here, certain colors have certain meanings. And when you start looking around at some of the companies that you send your business to, it might have something to do with the colors they use. Not necessarily, but it might. And there are certain things that they are looking to say with each of those things. For instance, you see on the left-hand side there, yellow, optimism. So what companies can you think of that are using yellow as one of the key colors in their product? I would, in thinking about this, if you're going to use colors on your resume, be mindful of the audience that you're looking to tap into. So if you are a person who likes a very traditional looking resume, black ink, white paper, you're gonna have to change that up a little bit if you want to work in graphic design or advertising or marketing or something like that. That industry is based on imagination and being edgy and trendy. And black ink on a white resume is probably not going to move the meter for you. Conversely, if you are looking to work in a very traditional conservative type of industry, like accounting maybe, or even like the legal profession, you're not going to want to use a whole bunch of flashy color and graphics and things like that, because that is not what they're about. It's about tradition and playing the long game and being conservative. So in that case, you're probably better served with black ink on white paper. The key is to know your audience. So let's look at some examples of some companies and the colors that they use. Once again, I'll make this a little bit bigger because there's a lot on this page. So I used the example of yellow earlier. You see that it stands for optimism. Clarity and also warmth go along with that. And you can see some examples of some of the companies for whom yellow is their primary color in their color scheme. And then some of them, it makes a lot of sense. I'm looking at McDonald's. I'm looking at Shell Oil right there. Subway. It's easy to figure out why they're using yellow there, because those are customer-facing companies. They want to portray an image of being welcoming, of being open, of being friendly. That's the image that they're going for. If you look at a company, if you look at the blue category, trust, dependability, and strength. JP Morgan. JP Morgan is a financial services company that's been around for 130 years. If there's a company that, if I'm putting my money someplace, I really, really want them to be dependable, strong, and trustworthy. You can see why they're using blue. Hewlett Packard, another one. Ford, another one. That logo and that color scheme haven't changed for over 100 years. If you look in the upper right corner, then we have some that incorporate all the colors. NBC, Google, Microsoft, eBay. They're grabbing as many colors as they can. They're trying to capture just about every single one of these concepts. And as I mentioned earlier, a lot of time, a lot of money, and a lot of effort went into putting these things together. Some of these take years to put together. Some, you can kind of see where they came from. To use that Ford logo again, I'm going to guess that was probably, get right there, see if I can get over there. I'm going to guess that was probably based on the way that Henry Ford, you can't see it real clearly there. That's probably based on the way that Henry Ford wrote his signature, if I had to guess. Another example like that. I can't see another one that jumps out like that way. Look at Monster right here in green. Not only is it an M, a very customized M, but it sure looks to me like what a monster's claw would do to, dirt or fabric or something like that. So you can see what it is that they're going for there. John Deere, right here. They're an agricultural products company. It stands to reason that they would use green, because it's implying that if you are using their products, stuff is going to grow, stuff is going to be healthy, and oh, by the way, we make things that cut grass. Color is grass, green. So you start thinking about, what is it that companies are grabbing with the colors, with the way that the words look. Start thinking about that when you see logos and products out there. Next screen. All right, so here we go with some examples of some misses when it comes to branding. All of these quite famous examples, and as I mentioned, the time and money and effort that went into putting these things together did not pay off for these companies. And there are dozens of examples. These are just four that I grabbed. The first one I want to talk about is New Coke. You see it right there in the middle of the screen. Thinking back to the mid 80s when this was developed, Coke was losing market share to Pepsi. Pepsi's always been a distant second when it comes to cola. But in the 80s, Pepsi had really landed on some very effective endorsers and ad campaigns, and they were really starting to eat into Coke's dominance in that market. So Coke decided we need to change it up a little bit. So they changed the formula and they came out with New Coke. And it was a disaster from day one because what the general public thought when Coke did that is they're changing their formula because there's something wrong with it, because they're second rate, because they're hurting. And none of that was really true, but that's what the perception was. So Coke comes out with this stuff, and they tried to sell it alongside the regular Coke, which then led to issues with the bottlers, with the distributors, because now they have to sell twice, or they have to carry twice as many products. So that led to supply chain issues. Then people started wanting the real Coke back again, the original Coke back again. So after about 3 months, Coke came back with it, and then they called it the real thing. So now when you call it the real thing, what does that make the new stuff? Fake thing? The bad thing? This was a major problem for Coke. Eventually, they renamed it in 1990, and they discontinued it altogether in 2002. Coke still owns the market when it comes to colas, but this was a prime example of unintended consequences by trying to change something that didn't need to be changed. Next to that, you see that jumble, which is the Olympic logo for the London 2012 Olympic Games. The Olympic logo itself is traditional. It's 5 interconnected rings, each of different colors, and every one of those colors appears in at least one country's flag, which is why those colors are there. London decided to do something a little bit edgy, so they come up with this logo here, and it's roughly a 2 and a 0 on the top and a 1 and a 2 on the bottom. The problem was it is so jarring and so frankly ugly. People hated this logo. This was not the logo that was used when they were bidding on the Olympic Games. It was something much more traditional. But this is what they used when the Olympics finally came around. People despised it. This logo cost $645,000 to design, just to have people truly hate it. Oops. In the lower left corner, here we have Oxford dictionaries. And you see the before right there. And it's just what it sounds like. This is a business that makes dictionaries. Not terribly exciting, definitely not cutting edge, but strong and trustworthy and conservative. And you see what their logo was there under the before. You see what they changed it to in 2014. Can anybody see a potential problem with what they changed it to? Feel free to put something in the chat there if you notice an issue with this logo. It is very small. You're right about that. Does it look like anything Does it look like any other logo that you may have seen? Yeah, possibly. Yeah, it does look like the Target logo. The color is a little bit different, but you're on the right track. This is basically a dead ringer for another logo, though. And they violated the first rule of branding and copywriting by not looking to see if anyone else had already taken this particular design. In this case, Beats by Dre. That is basically the Beats by Dre logo. Um, and when you do something like that, you run a huge risk of copyright violations and getting stuck in court. Um, and once again, I mean, think about the dollars that go into putting these things together. And all because someone didn't notice at the time that this is a logo that's already been taken by somebody else. So then you roll this out only to have somebody say, yeah, hey, it's crazy. That's our logo. And now you've got to go right back to the starting board. It's hugely embarrassing. It's very costly. And it can be a real problem. And then, of course, the last one is right here, the Tropicana example. So you see on the left-hand side there, the traditional Tropicana container. Everyone knows that logo. It hasn't been used for years, but everyone knows that logo, the orange with the straw stuck in it. If that doesn't illustrate exactly what this company is, then I don't know what does. Well, in 2009, they decided to change it, and they changed it to the one on the right when you see when it says after. They got rid of the orange with the straw. They took the language, the brand name, and they ran it vertically rather than horizontally. The issue that they had here was by putting this in basically a very plain-ish white carton, it now looks generic. They took away the one thing that people recognized, which was the orange with the straw, and they put it in a generic-looking container. Their sales dropped 20% in the first year. This led to major problems with their company, and because the whole industry is based on people growing and selling oranges, it filtered all the way down to the base level, which was the orange growers in Florida and California, who nearly rebelled because now they can't sell their product because Tropicana is not selling orange juice the way that they used to. This got switched back very quickly. Another example of a solution in search of a problem. There was nothing wrong with what they were doing. They decided to change it simply for the sake of changing it. Now, here are some examples of some branding hits as opposed to those misses. So the first one that we're going to look at here is McDonald's. And in this case, we are looking at McDonald's logos going back to, or McDonald's branding going back to 1940, before it was even really a burger joint. It was McDonald's Famous Barbecue. That's how it started. You see in the middle, it shifted to McDonald's hamburgers. So we've seen that for the first time. In the upper right corner, we've incorporated red. And then in 1961 is where you first saw those golden arches. Now, yes, they changed a little bit. They changed to what we've come to know and love starting in 1968. And then at that point, you've only seen changes around the margins. The lettering went from red to black to white to gone. You see some shading there in one case in the early 90s up to 2010. Other than that, though, those arches have not changed. And that is an example of a strong, consistent brand. And I would be willing to bet that you are not going to see a change in those arches in my lifetime. Second one we have is Geico. How do you sell? What's one of the easiest ways to sell products? Talking animals. Um, so Geico decided that our name sounds similarly enough to a cute little lizard. So we are going to use talking with English accent little lizards to sell our products. And it's the Geico Gecko. It's now been around for, wow, a dozen, 15 years or so. Everyone knows it. It doesn't really even matter what the letters look like anymore because everyone knows that particular little gecko. You see it on TV, you hear him talking, you know exactly who it is. No one even stops to think that the G in Geico stands for government, which doesn't really mean anything because it doesn't matter. It's just an example of a very strong brand that they came up with and are sticking with. This one right here, for those of you that have ever been to London, England, this is the logo of the London subway system. On the left-hand side here is the original, this red one with the blue outline. Very recognizable. Everyone knew what that meant. You saw the red circle with the blue lettering. It says Underground. Everyone knows in London that that's the London subway system. However, it was a little busy. You had what looked like train tracks there above and below the letters. You've got kind of an unnecessary blue border around the red. So they simplified it. Got rid of the train track looking things, got rid of the border, and now you have a very simple, very historical, true to history logo that everyone recognizes if you're in London. It's a fine example of changes and updating to modernize a logo while keeping the same general appearance and meaning. A great example of updating a logo. Another one would be the NFL. Excuse me. On the left-hand side, you see an older logo that the NFL used probably back in the 50s and 60s. We've got some stripes that kind of look like yard markers or yard lines down at the bottom. We've got pink in there, but really what we're going for here is red, white, and blue. The NFL's is American, is mom and apple pie and everything else. You got the shield, which actually has now become synonymous with the NFL. So if you hear sportscasters talking about the shield, they're talking about the NFL. With the stars, red, white, and blue, the football, all that stuff. But once again, kind of like the London one, it's a little busy. So on the right-hand side, you see the current one. We've taken out probably 2/3 of the stars. We've removed the pink and white yard lines. Now you just have basically the same standard format. You've still got the football on the top. Even the letters look similar, but they're not identical. Another great example of updates and modernizing that keeps the core message the way it used to be. And once again, if you were to go online, you can find dozens of examples of good logos, good branding, and bad branding. So finally, once you've done all this compiling of information, you've worked on your elevator pitch, you've worked on your color scheme and everything else, you're going to pull all this together and you're going to get an example that looks possibly something like this top one right here. I don't know who Leslie Mason is, but I'm pretty sure that he or she is going to have this same header on all of their official documents, perhaps on their stationery as well. So if you were to get a thank you note for the Christmas gift that you sent to Leslie Mason, it's probably going to have this on there somewhere. You want to be consistent, and in this case, it's easy to read. To me, it looks classic. and that's what they're going to be. That's what they're going to go with. Similarly, Andrea Kiplinger. We have a logo over here that looks, once again, very classic. And now they're doing something that I personally wouldn't do, but you've got a little bit of leeway. They're using multiple fonts. I am not a believer in doing that, but they have found something that works for them, and they're blending those two things together. Some things to keep in mind. About 2/3 of us are visual learners. What does that mean? That means we want to see pictures. We want to see those colors and things all put together because it's going to mean something to us. If we're using color, that's going to increase people's desire to read it. Think about the example of 30 resumes, and if 29 of them are black ink on white paper and one of them has a splash of red in it, which one is going to catch the hiring manager's attention, regardless of what's even in the content at that point? If there is a video about something, people are more likely to buy a product. Think about if you're scrolling Facebook, think about if you're on LinkedIn. If there is a short video to watch instead of reading a paragraph, many times people are going to watch that video. And if they do, they're more likely to buy whatever it is that they just saw. Much communication is visual, so that's why we want to pay particular attention to the way stuff looks. This is why companies devote so much effort and time to fonts and colors and things like that. It affects the attitudes that we have. If there's an image on a post, people are more likely to engage with it, significantly so. So think about that. If you're putting something out there on Facebook, if you're putting something out there on LinkedIn, something as simple as, tonight for dinner I had spaghetti. Fascinating. Put a picture with it and see what happens. You're going to get more feedback. People are going to be saying, wow, that looks really good. What kind of noodles did you use? Is that sauce homemade? You're going to get a lot more feedback if you use a picture. And then finally, our brain is going to process what we see much, much faster than what it is that we have to read. So use that to your advantage as well. So finally, once you've thought through all this stuff, you're going to want to put it all together. So in the middle, we have, in that dark gray circle, we have the personal branding breakdown. What goes into that is the image, is your identity, your style, your logo, your tone. Let me make that a little bit bigger. I see the stuff on the right is hard to read. Reputation, impression, and so on. That is all going to combine to come together to create that breakdown. Some tips just to remember. Reach out to those in your network. Don't just grow it. You want to nurture it as well as time goes on. You want to build those relationships, and you want to reciprocate the offer to help, meaning you want to give someone else something first, or if not first, then at least in exchange for. You want to create that memorable conversation starter, that elevator pitch, or that networking speech, whatever you wish to call it. And then remember, be genuine and authentic. People will see right through you if you are neither of those things. Finally, as I mentioned, we have 5 other offices here in the county. If you are interested in any of our other services, whether they be career services, whether they be the possibility of enhanced training, so you can either find a new career or move on in your existing career. If you've been displaced because your job went overseas, or if you're simply looking to register for unemployment or get some ideas for available jobs, any one of these 6 offices can help you. Jeanette and I both work out of the Troy office. That does not mean that we're the only ones that you can go see, but what I would say is call first simply because I don't know what availability is for case managers and program staff and things like that. So I'm sure that one of these offices is going to be relatively close to you. With that said, that basically wraps up today's presentation on branding. I want to remind you, we do have a survey out there. I would encourage you to complete that, or at least consider completing that. If you have any questions, feel free to unmute, or you can put them in the chat. I am going to, we'll keep an eye on the chat for at least a few minutes. We'll probably stick around for 5 or 10 minutes. And then if there's anything else that we can assist with, please feel free to let us know. If, however, you are satisfied with today's presentation and you just want to get on with your day, feel free to do so, because the formal part of this has now concluded. So thank you for attending.